Welcome to the second summary video for this Tau FireWarrior Helmet cosplay. I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. In the first video of this series, I sat down and I did a bunch of measurements in my head, and I kind of came up with a basic idea of approximate size and shape of the final helmet. And the whole point of that was to try to solve as many problems as I could in the design phase, so when I got to the build phase, there's less things to worry about and things that in theory go more smoothly. And I can tell you for now, so far they have, but anyway, we'll get to that a little bit in a moment. The first step you gotta do though is really gotta review your designs and make sure everything is correct. One thing I did is I sat down with a ruler again, measured my head, compared them to the measurements that came with last time, and I realized the helmet I was building last time was a little too big. So while the overall shape remained the same, I did make some measurements and made it a little bit smaller. So once again, check your plans. Also, an important thing I did not do last time that I should have done is I didn't do a top-down view of the FireWarrior helmet. Now, while the FireWarrior helmet from the front and side is symmetrical, it is not from the top. The right side has a little notch thing cut out of it to where the antenna communication system goes. So you want to make sure to actually factor that into my build. So today I did sit down and do a top-down sketch to make sure that I remember that little notch thing is there. Let's move on to the actual helmet construction part. And what I'm doing here is I'm simply just mashing on a bunch of monster clay. It's an oil-based clay in a shape such that it matches the dimensions of the helmet. However, there is a problem here. I only have one 5-pound set of this monster clay, and that's nowhere near enough to sculpt the entire helmet. So what I'm going to do is build this helmet in pieces and then join them together later with various methods depending on what my final overall design is going to be. So all I'm really doing is taking monster clay, attaching it to this styrofoam head. Even though the styrofoam head is not the proper size of my head, it's about 80 to 90% the size, that doesn't really matter, because the reality is the fact is the head is just filler. What matters is if the various pieces of the helmet, and therefore the various pieces of the areas in monster clay, have to match the proper dimensions. If they do match the dimensions, then excellent. It doesn't matter, you know, the shape of the head underneath it here, it's going to fit my head, and that's what I'm really going for. I'm just taking globs of monster clay, throwing it on this head, and I'm just using my hands and sometimes a box cutter to go ahead and sculpt it down to the right dimensions that I figured out yesterday in the drawings. And once I've got an area big enough that where I'm using most of my clay, in this case I think this area I ended up sculpting is about half the clay material they give you in a 5-pound package, I'm going to start the process of building this piece of the helmet. Now this helmet is going to be built from first a layer of 1/8" craft foam, followed by a layer of Worbla patches, you'll see that in a moment, and finally I'm going to clean that up and eventually put a layer of resin on top of that to fill in all the little bit of inaccuracies per se with the Worbla. But this process overall was relatively straightforward. First thing I do is I just take out a sheet of the 1/8" EVA craft foam. You can buy this from all over the place. Any kind of hobby store will sell this. And using a heat gun, I heat up in various pieces and I pin it down to the clay as a base, and then I just stretch it across the area of clay that I'm building. So I'm really just heating it up, stretching the EVA foam out, heating it up some more, stretching out some more. And that's all I'm doing again as I go around the entire shape of the clay. Periodically I stick pins in to hold it in place, but this is just doing the same thing over and over again. Sometimes you're going to get in a situation where you can't stretch it out any further, you got parts of the foam that are overlapping, and that's alright, you can work with that. Just go ahead, take some scissors, cut out the pieces of the foam that are overlapping, and you're going to end up with a little bit, you know, an area that's cut apart there. Just tape it down with duct tape, or Gorilla Tape works really well as also. And then that'll just join those two pieces of foam together, and it's not that big of a deal the fact they're taped together, because most of the strength is going to come for our next step, which is the Worbla. Now Worbla is a type of thermoplastic. It's some weird mixture of plastic and wood that when you heat up it becomes very flexible. You can stretch it out, mold it, and shape it over things. And in addition, it's very good about gluing to things and gluing to itself in particular, and also glues the EVA foam very well. So you're doing the same process you did before, except this time I'm just using random patches of Worbla I have sitting down. I heat them up and I stick them down in the EVA foam and I mold them to the shape of the clay. So what this is going to do is give this part of the helmet plenty of structure and strength. The foam by itself is pretty weak and the Worbla by itself is pretty weak. When these two are combined together, you get a lot of strength, and it's plenty for a face mask like this. And it's literally that process again and again where I'm just taking patches of Worbla, heating them up, sticking them down. I kind of heat up areas that didn't glue down right, then bend them down, and it's just a process of adding the Worbla until you get something that's approximately the shape of the area you're building. You know, there's still a little bit of messiness to it, there's weird pieces sticking off, but we'll clean all that up in the third video and go on from there. So once again, I'm Jason. Thank you for watching the second part of the Tau FireWarrior Cosplay Helmet video. If you want to watch this stuff live, you can find it over at twitch.tv/RockerRobotics. You can follow me there, or just subscribe to this video here on YouTube, and you get the latest videos as I release them. So once again, thank you for watching, and have a good night.